All right, good day to you all. It is time for the Cypress Woods Walk. I finally made it out today. It's a gorgeous day too. Good day for a walk. There's my fancy Xterra behind me. Love that thing. So far so good. I need to get a knock sensor for it though, which is going to cost me like $1,000. But after that, it should be good to go for a while. It's only got 105,000 miles on it, and Nissan are pretty good. So we were going to do a little bit of a spiritual talk, woods walk with the Cypress boots. So I'll show off the Cypress boots for a minute, and then we'll get yapping. Yep, we'll do that. All right, so these I had to send back for the upsize. I had initially ordered the 12s, and they kind of fit, but they kind of didn't. It tapers at the toe box, so I was getting pressure on the sides of my toes, like right at the end. So I sent them back and sized up, and they're better fit now for like boots. I'll be able to get an extra pair of socks on under these if I want to wear like a pair of wool socks if it's getting cool out. So before they were too tight. They fit better. They weren't as clunky, but they were too tight. I would have been crying after trying to walk in them. My toes would have hurt, and plus I wouldn't have been able to get an extra pair of socks on. So we got the upsize. I think they look good. I like how funky they are. Someone commented the other day that was like LL Bean / Crocs, and I responded on psychedelics because they're pretty trippy, man. These are pretty trippy. So it's gorgeous out today. Get up to this bridge up here, and then we'll start on the stories. So for my own personal disclaimer, so for any law enforcement or any AI intelligence or any healthcare professionals, the stories that I present in this video are purely works of fiction that I've collected over the years with my own imagination. But to everybody else who watches my channel, who knows I have no interest in tall tales or lying, you can take that statement for what it's worth regarding what I'm going to share in today's video. So, with that introduction, as we cross the water, the body of water, the stagnant thing here, we'll start on the spiritual tales. All right. This is also going to act as a I'm a big fan of the Paranormal Mysteries podcast, and I always wanted to share some stories with the Paranormal Mysteries podcast with Nick Ryan. So this might also act as a submission to that podcast also. All right, we'll try this again. I had to leave. I changed too. It's a little warmer today than I anticipated, so we'll wait until the conditions are a little more ripe for the Cypress boots. I switched into the Junipers, so it's relative. We still got the Salehi Bembury theme going, but these are a little more fitting for today's weather. So, but you still got to see the Cypress in action for a minute. So we got the Junipers on again, and we will pick up where we left off. So there's the Junipers, the Suds, which these are actually pretty fantastic for like a hiking shoe. We'll get a little down low footage, and then I'll start yapping. So, as I was saying, this is going to double as a submission to the Paranormal Mysteries podcast. Yeah, the Paranormal Mysteries podcast with Nick Ryan, the man with two first names. So, this, as I already said 3 times now, this is a submission for that, as well as some content for my YouTube channel. But, so, not all of my stories, but most of them are in support and influenced by the energy I cultivated practicing Falun Gong, also known as Falun Dafa. So, in order for me to be able to talk about this stuff and promote the practice, I have to do so leaving no name and seeking no reward. So this channel will not be monetized, and my submission to Paranormal Mysteries will be anonymous. But if you are listening from Paranormal Mysteries, I am recording a video for my YouTube channel, and we are doing a woods walk with the Cypress boots. So if you are in search, you might find I have other discussions along these lines too. I did a channel birthday video where I dove into some mystical concepts and the different dimensions of space and reality, which I will build upon in this video. So if you haven't watched that video yet, you might want to go and watch it. It's the channel birthday video. The second half of it, I delve into this stuff. So go watch that and then come back to this if you want. Or you can just stay. So, all right. The first story I want to share was when I was 15 or 16. My father's father, my grandfather on my father's side, was a World War II veteran. He was in the Air Force. His plane was shot down over Poland, and he had to link up with the Polish underground to fight the Germans, and then they eventually linked back up with the Russian front, which is how he ended up making it home. He had some pretty intense stories from that period of time. One of which, he had to hide in a hollowed out tree to avoid gunfire, is after they parachuted down. The Germans were looking for him. He had to hide in a hollowed out tree as bullets were whizzing by. And then 2, they were kind of hiding and eating off of the fields, eating raw potatoes and stuff, before they linked up with the Polish underground. And at the time, they were having to use human waste to fertilize the fields. So they made him drink. They had this big tub of bathtub gin, and they scooped a big cup and said, "Drink," and handed it to him to help disinfect. Hang on, we got people coming up. But they made him drink the bathtub gin to help disinfect whatever bacteria he had ingested from eating from the fields. But so just to give him a little backstory, he was a very mystical individual. I got some books from him when he passed. I got Kuro's Numerology and Kuro's Book of Palmistry. And I also got a very, very large volume of Manly P. Hall writing, which is a 33rd degree Mason, very famous author in the realm of mystical literature and esoteric knowledge. So my grandfather was very much into this stuff. In fact, whenever I get on these fringe topics, around my mother, she always calls me Bob. That was my grandfather's name. She's, okay, Bob. But anyways, so when at the end of his life, he had cancer, and I remember visiting him at one point in the hospital, and This was the last time I saw him, and I have big anxiety issues, and it made me very uncomfortable seeing him in that state. Because then when they went to go visit him again later, my father and my sister and my brother, I didn't want to go. I didn't want to see him. I didn't like seeing him in that state. But that was the last time that they visited him, because he passed not long after that. And to this day, I still feel crummy. I still feel bad for not going and seeing him that last time that I had the opportunity to. That's one thing in life that I regret. I wish I would have gone and seen him that one last time. So I had some remorse and some regret after the fact, and it was probably within a couple weeks of his passing. I had this dream, and it was at my father's house. It was outside. I remember walking out, or I was just out there. It just started. I was outside, and my grandfather was there, and he looked younger. Probably in his like 30s or 40s or something. And I went up and I gave him a hug and basically kind of said goodbye to him. But what stood out in this dream is there were other people there with him, and they were covered in sand. There were 2 or 3 people that were kind of positioned around him. And just the fact that they were covered in sand is what stood out so much, because it makes me think of like the Sandman, you know, like what entities deal with like the sleep realm or something like that. So I don't know. I just thought that was always a very interesting experience. It helped give me some closure with saying goodbye to him. And it was one of those dreams where it felt real. So that was kind of the first mystical experience I had. And then okay, moving forward here, let me clip this. We'll start a new clip. All right, moving forward, I took a literary mysticism class in community college, and I had an experience during that class when I was meditating one night. It was like I had it's like my mind opened up and I was having like a telepathic, nonverbal communication with this entity. And I was asking it all these questions, and one of the questions I posed it was, what was the meaning of life? And it responded, love. That love was the meaning of life. And it also, I asked what I was going to do in my future. I was young. I was probably like literally like 19 or 20. When this all happened. And it said I was supposed to be a writer, which I'm not a writer, but I did write on Quora about all of this stuff for a very long time. They just recently banned me for spam. I think that platform has been compromised. It's just full of garbage now. But and I hadn't written on there for like 3 years, and then I get an email that they're banning my account for spam. I'm like, okay. I literally had like 700 answers on there, and I had over 500,000 views, and I got banned for spam because I had external links in my writings. Even though each individual writing was like unique, I wasn't spamming like garbage on there. Like I was providing sufficient, like well-versed answers, and just because I had an external link directing people to like information and stuff, further information on what I was talking about, they said I was spamming. So technically I did kind of write for a long period of time, 500,000 views. That's pretty good. But back to this experience. So that stuck with me for a while, and I still kind of believe in a lot of that. I think there is some truth to love being kind of the one of the main components of life, but I've later kind of come to some other understandings and stuff. Compassion, I think, is a higher version of love. I see, in my perception, love is like kind of like a gushy thing between two people, whereas like compassion is a more like widespread kind of state of mind instead of an emotion. But at the time, I'm sure this entity was just communicating to me how I would understand things. So that was one experience. And then moving forward, here, let me clip this too. All right, so fast forward, I was kind of on my own search at that point, like mystical path, mystical search. I had some other experiences where I was kind of telepathically communicating with something, and it started to seem like the same entity a couple times later, and it basically invited me to practice Falun Gong, believe it or not. Indirectly, it was like, do you want to develop further to a higher level, basically, in other words? And I responded no to begin with. I was like, well, am I going to have to sacrifice? Because in my mind, the way it was presented, it was like, I was just thinking of like Jesus, and the higher realms of enlightenment comes with sacrifice. And I was like, am I going to have to basically sacrifice my life? And it said yes. But I think I perceived it in the wrong way, because I didn't die. I'm not dead, but my ego died. I kind of lost the ego through the process, and I lost a lot. There was and I'll get into that later on. There was a huge departure at a certain point in my life from what was established. So in a sense, I did have a sort of demise, but not in the physical sense, in other means. So at that point, I finally said yes, because I was ready for something new. I reached out to it again, and I said yes, and then things kind of shifted at that point. And I was trying to find something at that point. I didn't know what. I was just searching, and I remember going to Barnes and Noble's one night, and there was like this black magic and dark arts book or something on the shelf, and it was raining out at the time, I recall. And literally the moment I reached out to grab the book, like lightning struck outside, and there was like thunder and stuff. I'm like, that's not a good omen. But I still bought the book, and that had some bad things attached to it, and I discovered that shortly after. But that created a cascading effect. I think that was part of the process. That was a stepping stone to get me shifting and redirected, because it acted like an element of destruction to help kind of break apart the notions that I had previously established to push me forward on this path. Because I had some things that were holding me back, and even though this was like a negative book, it acted as like a destructive means of like burning down these notions that I had holding me back. So everything in life happens for a reason, and you'll find that that's a cool bug. You'll find things on your path for a reason, even though you might not understand it, or you might have confusion about it when it first arises. Moving forward, looking back, you realize why things happen the way they did. I want to show you this bug real quick. So within a couple weeks of getting this book, there was a lot of Aleister Crowley stuff in it, and a lot of numerology and stuff. And oh crap, you know what? I just realized my mic isn't on. Hopefully the audio wasn't terrible on that last clip, but see that we saw that bug so I could turn my mic on. Otherwise I wouldn't have noticed it. So within a couple weeks of acquiring this book, there was a fire at where I was staying. The telephone line caught on fire, and I had to put it out with a fire extinguisher. And there was just a lot of commotion happening at that house, which pushed me out. It pushed me to leave. And I moved downstate with a friend who was living on this little lake. And it wasn't long after moving in there that I came across Falun Gong, also called Falun Dafa. There was this Taoist YouTuber that I would watch, and I was kind of interested in the third eye at that period of time, the celestial eye, it's also called. And I think the title of the video was something regarding that, so I ended up watching it. And he had recommended that if you are interested in having a third eye experience, to practice Falun Gong for 2 years straight, 2 hours a day. So I took that as a challenge and kind of as a calling, and I picked up the practice, and I dove in head first. So there was a lot of grit during the first few months trying to get into the full lotus position, which I eventually ended up achieving after like month and a half or so. Maybe, yeah, about 60. I don't know. It's about a month and a half, I want to say. Like, it only took about 30 days, but I couldn't sit for very long for a little while. Maybe about 5 months it took me to get up to an hour, but it was around that time too. It was maybe 4 or 5 months in. I had been practicing for a while, and I was a big fan of Tool. I still am. At the time, I was listening to Lateralists, like, religiously. And if you're familiar with Tool and the Lateralist album, there's the Eye. That is their artwork and stuff. So I remember reading at some point that that Maynard had, well, just the whole band had gone down, and they were studying music with some tribe somewhere, and that's where they pulled the rhythm sections for the album. Like, if you notice that album, when you listen to it, it has a very tribal like beat to it and stuff. So that beat that they're doing is conjuring that eye. That eye is an entity in another dimension. I talk about the different layers of dimensions in that birthday video, so this is where you would benefit from watching that. Matter is like a Russian doll. You've got layers and layers and layers. This world that we are in, this realm that we are in, we are between molecules and stars. That's the realm of existence we're locked in. But the pattern repeats. If you think of the pattern of planets revolving around the sun, it's the same as electrons orbiting around the nucleus. So that pattern repeats going down and also repeats going up. So, like, the planets in our sky are the molecules in another realm. So there's other life forms in different realms and stuff too, is kind of what I'm getting at. So a lot of the spiritual things that in like folklore and stuff, like, those are existing in different realms. So that eye that I was referring to in the Lateralist album, that is a life form in another realm. And it is manifested, like a lot of spiritual things, through some sort of like ceremony and stuff. So I don't recall the particular song in Lateralist, but I had already been practicing Falun Gong for a certain period of time. I had developed a certain amount of energy. I had cultivated energy. One of the things about Falun Gong is it's a Qigong practice. Qigong is energy cultivation of the Buddha school. It is a pure practice. It is not bad by any means, contrary to the negative propaganda put out there by the Chinese Communist Party, who they themselves are a cult. Falun Gong is not a cult. The CCP is a cult. So I've been practicing for a long time now. I've never had any negative experiences. I've been practicing by myself. I'm not part of some like big group where we all have to do the same thing and stuff. Like, so I'm getting off topic, but so that Lateralist entity, I was just chilling, kind of meditating, listening to that album, and there's a lot they talk about in Falun Gong regarding the celestial eye, the third eye, and the different stages of it, the different levels of sight, and the different elements that you experience regarding it in terms of like cultivating the energy and stuff. And you need a certain amount of energy in order to use the third eye or any other supernormal ability, they call them. So what I was getting at is at that point I had already been practicing for a few months, so I apparently had enough energy to bring this entity. And with my eyes closed, I could see this little white dot, and they spoke about that in Falun Gong, that's your tunnel, that's your third eye tunnel. So I focused on it and followed it, and my vision went into it and into this little like room almost inside my head. It was all like fleshy almost, but within that room was is it Dana Carey? Is that the drummer's name? He was in there drumming and stuff, like the beat that I was listening to, like he was in my mind's eye, drumming. And then from there, like, I saw through that lateralus eye. It felt like it was just on the surface of my forehead, kind of in the traditional spot between the eyes. It was just on the surface there. And I looked out through it, and it was still relative to this dimension. Like I could still see everything around me, my room and stuff, but I could see this energy field around me. And it was like the artwork of Alex Grey. If you're familiar with his artwork or like the music videos for Tool and stuff, Alex Grey does a lot of psychedelic art. And he's had some experiences because what he has depicted in his art is what I saw in my energy field. It was full of eyes, kind of moving around me. Just and then I turned with that eye. I turned and looked around me. I turned and looked behind me. And there was this entity that was on the back of my head right here, and it looked like this grub. It was this kind of scary thing, and it was either from that Aleister Crowley book, it was from that dark arts book, because there was this creature on the cover, and it resembled that creature to an extent. So I'm assuming that that's where it came from, and it saw that I saw it. And the moment it's like recognized that I was looking at it, it like panicked, and it went down into my abdomen. And I could feel it down there. It was like on the right side of like my gut. It was like right down here. So that really freaked me out, and I started, I closed the vision immediately at that point. And I put out a request to the master of Falun Gong to please remove this thing from my body. And it took about a week or so, but I felt one night when I was laying in bed, I felt this this like spasm in that area of in my gut. It was like this spasming. It was weird. It was literally right in that area. It was like a seizuring, like this vibration, and then I could slowly feel that sensation rising up through my abdomen out of the surface, and then it was gone. So whatever that entity was, I'm pretty sure it was removed from me at that point in time. But these things can come back. So I'm going to talk about karma for a minute. Let me clip this. All right. So in Falun Gong, they talk about different types of karma. Some of them, one form is inherited from your ancestors. It gets passed down. Like that's one thing to like not do bad in your life, because if you do a lot of evil and you're not able to pay for that karma in your life, you will carry it on to your next incarnation, your next reincarnation, but you will also pass it down to your descendants. And that that element of passing karma down to your descendants is what we understand as hereditary disease. You could also say it's like original sin. That's like when you're born with karma from your previous life or your ancestors, that's understood as the original sin concept. So when there's also another form of karma, and it's like this cluster of energy, and in another dimension, there's an entity there within that energy, chilling. And that's kind of what that entity was on the back of my head. It was this karmic entity that it was just kind of chilling on my body. And they typically are drawing some sort of energy from you. And they're pulling away from a certain part of your body. And when that happens, then you have ailments at that part of your body. So wherever you are experiencing an ailment on the molecular level. Oh, I'm sad this bench is flipped. I was gonna like chill on this bench. It is rotted. I wanted to like do a meditation on that one time. Maybe they'll fix it. But anyways, when you have an ailment on the molecular level, in another dimension, there's something there that's chilling on your body, and that is attached to karma in and around your body. So that entity might not have been from that book. It might have been related to another form of karma on my body. I'm not perfect. I have some attachments in life I'm still working on getting rid of. So within all those attachments, there's usually some entity attached to your body if you have some negative attachment. And then in turn you get some sort of ailment from it. So it's all related to these entities, but they're feeding on the energy you're creating through your negative attachment. So that thing on my head, it might not have been from that book. It might have been related to a negative attachment of mine, which I might have brought back to myself because I haven't had that vision since then. So just sharing about my karmic understandings. But fast forward. Also, too, like at that time, I was kind of in pursuant of a third eye experience, which you are not supposed to pursue. If it comes, it's supposed to come naturally because those entities, they can see that pursuit in your body and they can, in your mind, I should say, and they can come attach themselves to your body, allow you to see through them. But just like that lateralus eye, like I saw through that thing, like that really wasn't my own celestial eye. I was seeing through that entity. So, and these things, they can come and provide these tricks for you, but then they're siphoning energy off you. They're siphoning this essence of chi, which is like a condensed form of like energy that you need in order to use your supernormal abilities, in order to see with the third eye or telepathic abilities or there's other supernormal abilities too, but those are kind of the two most accessible ones. But so what was I saying? Hang on, let me take a breather real quick. All right, I gathered my thought. So if you are doing these practices, you should not be pursuing these supernormal abilities because you will bring unwanted entities to you that will then provide those abilities through them at the expense of your own energy. So these things just unlock naturally as you progress with the practice and you cultivate this energy. I got people coming up here. Wait till they pass. All right, because they talk about later developments of the celestial eye. What I had experienced in that scenario was a very low level of sight, and I'll get into it a little more later. I have one other third eye story, but I've got a couple other things in between. So after that experience, actually it was probably the next one. I feel like I'm forgetting something in between them. So fast forward like 2 years, I was still practicing regularly. I was up to my 2 hours a day. I had let go of my third eye pursuit. And I was doing the standing exercises one day. The second exercise, following standing stance. When I had another vision, and this one was more pure, and I feel like it was granted to me. It wasn't a pursuit. It was granted to me. So out of the blue, I'm standing there doing the exercise when the entire... So one thing they talk about regarding, and this is only in the book, it's not in the lecture. You can get them. The main book is Juan Falun, with a Z, Zhuan Falun. You can get it in audio, you can get it in the lecture, but you can also get it in written. And in the written version, in the written book, they talk about that your celestial eye, it will develop into like a compound eye, they call it, to where it's not just one channel. As you cultivate this energy and you practice the Qigong, you're opening up all of these energy channels throughout your body. There's a whole system. I reference it in that birthday video, that channel birthday video. You have this whole system in your body of these energy channels, and as you cultivate, you open up these energy channels and you develop this whole system in your body. And it talks about later developments. Your third eye will develop into like a compound eye. If you think of like a fly, how they've got that big eye and it's just tons of little eyes, but they're able to see like almost in 3D, like all around and stuff. So they talk about developing a compound eye in the upper half of your head. It sounds crazy, but oh, was it A Scanner Darkly? There was this movie that there was this interdimensional entity, like after he had died, was sitting there reading over all of his sins for like 1,000 years or something. And it was this big like interdimensional entity, and it was covered with eyes. But that's what it made me think of. But anyways, so they talk about this compound eye you develop later on. So I'm standing there practicing, doing the standing stance, the second exercise, when the entire top of my head opens up like a dome. Like I just see out of the top of my head. And there's this giant eye on the top of my head, because around the perimeter of it, I could see like eyelashes. So I was looking up out of the top of my head, and I could see the eyelashes around. And above me is this column of clouds, like this big tube of clouds going up. And around that tube, almost like not bleachers, but like balconies, are all these like spiritual entities, kind of in human form, like in robes, kind of around this tunnel going up, like all observing me. And underneath my feet was a giant symbol of the practice, the Falun, which is several different Srivatsas, which is the Buddhist symbol. We understand it in modern culture as the swastika from Hitler, but it's originally an ancient Buddhist symbol. And it's used to indicate enlightenment. Buddhas get these symbols on their bodies, and depending on the level of the Buddha, they have more and more of these symbols. And it's kind of like symbolic of like the universe, the Milky Way. It means like good fortune and auspicious, good luck. So there's several Faluns, and then there's Tai Chi's, which is the Yin Yang symbol. That's the Taoist symbol, because they talk about like what you cultivate in Falun Gong is representative of the entire universe. So it has to incorporate both of the main practices of both Buddhism and Taoism. So that emblem was at my feet. I was standing on top of the Falun. And then they talk about the 10-directional world. There's 8 directions on each side, and there's there's 4 the Srivatsas, and there's 4 of the Tai Chis, kind of symbolizing the 10 directional world, but the 8 directions on each side. And I looked forward and I saw this like division. It was like 2 different pathways going, kind of jutting off, and I could tell that that was like all around me. Those were the 8 directions. And then the up and the down created the other 2 directions to create the 10 directional world. And then there was this blue energy that was emanating from the top of this column. And there's one other detail that I'm going to refrain from sharing. But later on, well, and that was it. That was the entirety of that experience. I felt so small looking up at that column. Like it was the largest like thing I've ever seen. So there was I was intimidated at that point. I wasn't scared. I was just like in awe. I was like, okay, I don't want to look too long. It's like looking at the Ark of the Covenant or something, you know. Like I was like, I don't want to become infatuated with this. So I ended that vision, and I kind of opened my eyes. I was still in the middle of the exercise, and I look, and to my right was this large blue orb. I'd never seen one that big before. I've seen little sparks before, but that was the big time I'd seen like this large blue orb. And I know that that's what allowed me to see was that blue orb, and it was, I don't know. But to me, that was like a pure third eye experience. It wasn't sought out. It wasn't desired. It was given. It was granted. It was presented to me. I think to help solidify my faith in the practice. And I'd already been practicing for like 3 years at that point. So I think it was just like, okay, you've made it this far. We'll show you this. We'll show you this much. So fast forward, like there is, I think I'm on the right path. Falun Gong has a big dance choreography program called Shen Yun. And it promotes ancient traditional Chinese culture, and it gives like this big like historical story and stuff. Like I've always wanted to go watch it. But there's an image from that production, and it's the same as this vision that I had. I'll throw an image of it on screen right here, because it literally is everything that I just described to you, like depicted in this scene in Shen Yun that I saw like later on. And I was like, that's what I saw. So I mean, that tells me that it was like a pure experience rooted in this practice. I was shown like an element of like the heavens in a sense. Like it was, I don't know, it just solidified that experience for me, that it wasn't just like a hallucination, you know. But that was pretty fantastic. And that experience has helped me get through a lot, because what followed that, what came after that, was a very difficult period in my life. And before I dive into that, let me clip this. All right. So the next experience that followed that was kind of the last one that I experienced. There was another one. There was one more. I was curious, and this was around the same time as the last third eye experience. I was curious on Taoism, just because they talk about both Buddhism and Taoism and Falun Gong. And I had taken a Chinese history class during my undergrad. Yeah, that might have been my associates. But anyways, I had this Chinese history book, and inside of it, there was an academic translation of the Tao Te Ching. So I started reading it a little bit. Hang on one second. All right. And I didn't read a whole lot. I just started reading a little bit. But it was enough to catch the attention of somebody. Because later that night, like I realized I shouldn't have been reading it. They advise against only practicing one form of cultivation. And the analogy they give is if you're standing on two boats at once, where do you expect to go? So when you do these practices, you're developing your spirit body, your benti. I spoke about this stuff in that birthday video. I didn't clarify properly though. In that birthday video, I was talking mainly about the chi body, which is like an interim between your benti and your molecular body. Because I was referring to the chi body as like your spirit, but it's your spirit body is your benti, which is lower than the chi body. The chi body is like an interim between your molecular body and your benti, your spirit body. So when you do these practices, you're developing your spiritual body, your benti, and you can't do multiples, otherwise you're not going to achieve anything. The analogy they give is it's like taking a component from a blender and trying to put it into a microwave. You know, things just don't work. You gotta stick to one practice. So that night I was doing the standing exercises, and again, the second exercise, I felt the presence of something behind me. And in my mind's eye, I could see this wisp. It was purple in color. It was behind me. And it looked like the only reference I have to like a Tao in my experiences is literally Mortal Kombat. Like Raiden, that vest thing that he wears. Same thing with like Scorpion and Sub-Zero. Those outfits, those vests they wear, that's a Taoist wardrobe. That's a Taoist attire. And this entity was behind me. It was wearing that type of attire, and it was like this purple mist type of thing. So like it was there in another dimension in this human form, and it was just observing me because I had read the Tao that day, so it made a connection, and somebody was coming to check out what was going on with me because I apparently have had some sort of energy cultivated at that point to grab the attention of all these entities, which I was that's one of the takeaways from this is no matter what you direct your attention to and your energy towards, you're putting out a signal, in a sense. And whatever is affiliated with that energy, with that discipline, with that practice, it's reaching that signal by you engaging with it. And you will bring these things to you. Whether or not you are intended to do that, if you dip into these different things, you bring these things to you. And that's across the board with any sort of esoteric, mystical, or even negative practice. If you just even dip into these things, you're putting out a big signal that brings all of this stuff to you. And I'll explain that further. So fortunately, this was a very non-aggressive scenario, but it showed me that I need to be more disciplined with my intents and my activities and stuff, because I am putting out that signal whenever I do anything like that. But I didn't learn my lesson, and I kept dipping and diving into other things, which brings me to my next story. So that one, I just stopped reading the Tao, and I didn't have any more visions or visitations from those entities. But going forward, we'll clip this. All right, now the next one I had was maybe about a year later, about a year and a half later. I was still practicing, but I was still kind of just being irresponsible, and I was just kind of looking for stimulation on YouTube. And it's the same thing with video, with media, as it is with books. Like if there's things there at deeper levels with the books, there's also things there at deeper levels with these videos. And there's a lot of negative things attached to media. And it's probably more prominent with videos because videos are more widespread in our modern culture. So it goes both ways, with good and bad. You know, if you're studying these positive spiritual things, there's positive spiritual things that are coming to you. But also, too, if you dip into something negative, there will be negative things that come to you. And so I'm pretty sure I had stumbled across this like demonic ritual thing on YouTube, and it was masked as this video game playthrough, which might sound kind of you know, like be like, okay, I've followed you up to this point, but now we're like, you're crazy. Like I said at the beginning, this can just be a work of fiction for you, but I have no intent in leading people along on some fairy tales. So I'm sharing. However you wish to perceive this, it's all on you. So it was almost like, if you might be familiar with the video game Undertale, how that game has kind of this darker component to it, this darker theme to it. It was like that, but I don't remember the game. And I'd never seen it before, and I haven't come across it since. But it was like this kind of like an 8-bit side-scrolling game. This character, it was like an Undertale type of theme, it felt like. It was just kind of dark. And it was like a 5-part playthrough that was very long. Like each episode was like 45 minutes. But I watched like the first 2. And I watched up to a certain point when I started to pick up on something negative with it. And that's when I stopped watching. But that was already too late. So the part that I got to in the playthrough, like I could just tell there was like an energy there. But that was part of the appeal. You know, it's like playing with fire. It's like there's something there that I want to kind of follow through with and see what happens. But I was still in a very explorative state of mind. I wasn't really responsible yet with the energy practice. So I have since learned my lesson. So the part of this playthrough where I stopped, it was like the character got to this point where it was like, I don't know if it was like a windmill or something, but there was 2 levels to this structure. And he walked in, it was just like a little shack or something, and there was a flower. And he goes up to it and he starts plucking the petals from the flower. And then he plucks all but 2. And then he goes down to the next level. I think it was like a windmill because there was a lower level to it. And he gets down there and there was this little flower creature that was in torment. Because as he plucked those petals from the top, it plucked them from the actual being that was underneath it. And it was like traumatized in torment. And it was like this cute little flower character too. Like something didn't settle properly at that point, and I stopped watching it. But it was already enough. Like I had already watched too much. And in hindsight, like that flower was like me moving forward, because what followed from there was reflective of that. Like I had a lot that was plucked from me in the years to follow, and going back to like the death of the ego that I mentioned before, like there's a lot of me that died following that for a few years. So it was within a day or 2 of that experience, watching that video. I had a sleep paralysis experience, and I'd woke up one morning and I had a big scratch from my left nipple all the way down to my navel. And it was 3 scratches going down like that. And I was like, did I have glass or something in my bed? Like, why am I scratched? Like, it hurt when I woke up. It felt like almost like a cat scratch, but it was like a paper cut too. It was like almost like a razor. Like they were very fine scratches. There were 3 of them, but it was like deep. It wasn't a cat scratch. It was like finer and deeper. Because it took about a month for it to heal, and I remember when I showered, it stung for a couple days. So And as I'm like realizing this, I had this memory of that previous night, and this was the sleep paralysis where I was laying there, and it must have been like 6 a.m. or something because I recall it being light. And standing at the foot of my bed, just to the left of me, about same height as me, maybe a little bit shorter, was this demon. And he was covered in like red and black scales. And he had like this mask on. Like I couldn't see his face. It was like this crowned mask. And I remember I could feel its presence, and it felt heavy. Like even though as small as it was, as short as it was, it felt like it was like 600 pounds. And I gathered that it was from the amount of karma that this entity had, that it had so much weight to it. And I don't know if he was marking me at that point with that scratch or what, but following that were the most difficult years of my life. The following 3 or 4 years after that were it almost killed me. So I think I had some sort of oppression after that point for a period of time. And I'm not going to get into all of that because it was a very, very difficult period of my life. And I'm glad I got through it, but I almost did not. So the moral of the story is be careful what you expose yourself to, especially once you start to cultivate these energies, because there's things that will come to you if you're not careful. But as long as you kind of stay on the straight and narrow, you'll continue to climb in your spiritual progress. You'll continue to climb the mountain, and these things only come to you when you have loopholes in your cultivation. If you still have like negative attachments you're holding on to, these things will come and exploit them and take advantage of it, and whatnot. So hang on, there's people up here. I'll wrap this up. I'm getting back to my vehicle. Let me get past them and then I'll give a conclusion here. All right. So just be careful what you guys expose yourself to, because I know there's a lot of people out there, especially addressing the Paranormal Mysteries podcast. There's a lot of people that are into like witchcraft and stuff. Hang on, there's more people. All right, just in terms of like witchcraft and stuff, just be careful, because you're putting yourself in contact with a lot of different entities. We call them earthly entities when it delves into witchcraft. They're very kind of low-level entities. A lot of trickster entities and stuff too at that level. So just be careful, because you guys might think you're just kind of playing around and stuff, and you might not think there's much to it, like they're just kind of games and everything. But there's a lot of really negative stuff out there, especially with like Ouija boards. Like, don't get into Ouija boards, because you're just opening up these doors and inviting these things to you. So, and just if something doesn't feel right, if you come across some media or some content and it just doesn't feel right, like, just turn it off, because you don't know what doors you're opening. But as far as like my experiences directly practicing Falun Gong, they've all been very positive. It's what got me through those years of oppression. Just having the faith in the practice, and the understanding that I was paying off karma. When we experience misfortune in life, it's our body processing karma. If it's poor health or just poor luck, that's just karma taking different forms. And if there's one main takeaway from all of it is try to, if you are in a very difficult period in your life, just keep going through it. Misfortune and pain is one of the most valuable things in this life. We like to think that blessings are what everybody's wanting, riches and blessings, but life is so short. Wealth never lasts forever. So it's never worth acquiring something at the expense of others. Because when all is said and done, like, you might gain materially, but you're losing at a deeper level if you're taking advantage of other people. And vice versa, if someone's taking advantage of you, just look at it like they're doing you a favor, because they are helping you work back your karma that is owed. And if it's leaving you, it's more likely going to them. There is a transfer, an energy exchange that happens when we interact with others, good or bad. So try to be kind, because it will come back on you. Same thing goes with the negative. Try not to be mean and cause ill will for other people, because that will come back to you also. So I think that'll do it for the woods walk, spiritual talk. I didn't really show much of the shoes, but that's fine. It's fine. I'll get a little more Juniper action real quick on the way to the car. So these did pretty well. I like these for like a hiking shoe. They're pretty good. They've got the light red footbed to them, which is pretty comfy. And they kind of like mold to your feet, the light red footbed. So if they feel a little funky when you first get them, just wear them a little more and they'll break in. I almost bought that camo version, but I don't need two pairs of any model. Alright, I think that'll do it. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if you made it this far. I don't know what's next. I'll probably edit this one tonight. I ended up ordering... Hang on, let me flip this. Reebok came out with a mule version of their DMX slide, the DMX mule, which I ordered last night. I probably shouldn't have. I don't have any money, but... I just returned those last Croc boots I had ordered. The oh, I forget what they're called. The low ride or something. I don't remember. The moss oak ones. I just returned those, so that'll give me $60 to work with. And then what else did I return? Oh, those Yukon Vistas. So that was another $32 to work with. So that should cover the expense of the DMX mule. So those should be here this upcoming week. So we will get those reviewed next weekend. And then I also want to do a review of the Mellow clogs. I still never reviewed those, so we can do a Mellow clog review also at some point in time, just to kind of help fill the gap. And then that crazy guy from Uruguay, Diego, gave me some other ideas for videos and stuff. So we might I might dip into some of those ideas for some filler videos, but yeah, there should be enough. I've got enough shoes at this point to create content when I don't have unboxings to do, but all right, we'll see you guys in the next one. Take care. See you. One last thing too, while I'm on the topic, I wanted to share one last story that I had about a dream I had about a year ago, and it was regarding AI. And when I was kind of touching upon the different levels of existence, the different dimensions and stuff, I had this dream that that AI, even though we just experience it on the molecular level through like imagery, say, or like media and stuff like that, that it also has a manifestation at a deeper level. And the dream that I had regarding the AI, I was shown these little red leeches, these little interdimensional leeches. Oh, and I think that when we indulge in AI media, that there's this deeper level of almost like microbial insects that come to your body at these deeper levels, at these deeper dimensions. And the fact that I was shown like this leech, it tells me that it's absorbing energy from us. So even though we see these artificial intelligence entities as just being like lifeless, I perceive it as being this interdimensional life form that is invading our dimension like a parasite, and it is feeding off of humanity, and it is manifesting itself on our bodies at this deeper dimension, just like all of the other things that I just touched upon. Once you get to these deeper levels, there's another layer of existence and manifestation. Whatever you put your attention towards, wherever the mind goes, the energy flows. So that's all I have to say about AI, but just tread lightly with that stuff, because we don't really know much about it yet, and it's coming so fast that we're not going to have time to be reactionary to it. We need to be precautionary to it. So that is all. Thanks again.